So let's start with prices because that's the question I get asked most often on live chat. People come on and say, hey, I have $5, $10, $50, $100,000. What can I buy in Toronto? And the answer is unfortunately nothing. Toronto is very, very expensive. It's a world-class city. And people here, young people here, are having a hard time buying a home and they think they're never going to be able to afford one. We've kind of been going through a real estate bubble in the last few years. It's cooled down dramatically in recent months, but still, things are very expensive. So let's jump onto the computer. I'll show you what I mean, and then we're going to go through some price points. So the website here is realtor.ca. That's where you can go to look at Canadian real estate listings, and you can just filter for Toronto. So here we are. Greater Toronto area just means Toronto and the outskirts. You know, if you were to go on vacation, say, where are you from? You'd still say Toronto. So let's filter house, detached. Start at $100,000. See what this gets us. So $100,000 in Toronto, what can you get? The answer is absolutely nothing. Let's move that to 250. Still nothing. Let's move it to 400, 375. Still nothing. Bump it to 500, and here we should see a few houses trickle in. Three houses for $500,000 and lower in all of Toronto. Jump that to 700. 43 listings. 43, that's pretty much zero. Think of everybody who's trying to look for a home. You have 43 options in the biggest city in Canada. Jump it to 1 million. Now you have 217. Still not a great number. So now if we zoom out though, you'll see we get a lot more. So here, the highways around Toronto, this rectangle, that's what you kind of really call Toronto. I mean, Toronto on your tax form, it's gonna say Toronto, but all of this is really Toronto. So you have 1,100 listings when you zoom out a bit. So that is the critical point for detached homes. 700,000 to over maybe 1.2 million or so. That's when you're gonna get the hot spot for that detached two-story house in Toronto. So now that you have a better idea of how expensive Toronto is, let's look at some price points. So the first are apartment buildings and condos. Apartments are when you rent, and to be quite honest, in Toronto, they're not in the greatest areas and they're kind of old, and I can't really help you with them because they don't cooperate with agents. Condos, on the other hand, you own the unit in the building, you pay a maintenance fee every month, covers your water, covers your gas, covers your heating, that kind of thing, maintenance and insurance for the building. What is that going to cost you? Bare minimum, you're looking at $350,000 to $400,000. That's bare minimum for 1 or 2 people. It's very small, probably 3 times the size of the room I'm recording in. The trend for these things is smaller and smaller and smaller. If you're looking for something decent, I would say 450 is probably a good point, depending how far you are outside of the core. And if you're looking at 2 bedrooms, you're probably gonna have to jump that to about $650,000 to $700,000. Again, depends how far from the downtown core you are. But if you want a good sized second bedroom, you're gonna have to pay a little more. You can get a 2-bedroom for $500,000, but that second bedroom is gonna be tiny. It's gonna be about 6 feet times 9 feet, barely a second bedroom. You can't raise a family in one of those things. Next is the townhouse. And the townhouse is when you have a bunch of homes put together and they all share a wall. A little less privacy, but it's still a good option. You're probably gonna start paying around $550 at bare minimum to about $650, probably more $650 to $700 for something decent, and that's not too narrow. A step up from there, as you can guess, is the semi-detached, and that's when you have 2 homes put together and you share a wall. So you get a bit more space and you get more privacy, but you're gonna pay slightly more for it. I'd say you're probably looking at $700,000 at a starting point for something decent, and it goes up from there. And lastly, the detached house, the king of real estate, where you get most appreciation, where you can raise a family. It's what everybody moves up to. It's what everybody wants to end up in, is the detached house. So how much is that going to cost you in Toronto? Well, again, prices vary wildly. You'll see some $1 million shacks in Toronto. They're absolutely disgusting. I don't know who would pay $1 million for them, but it is what it is. So you're at minimum going to be paying $750,000 on the outskirts, and that's very tough already. So probably aim for 850. I think that's a good starting point. But you know, if you want something bigger, closer to the city, at least $1 million, probably 1.2 million. It's very expensive. They were going up 24% a year from 2014 to 2017. So let's quickly recap. Condo slash apartment, gonna cost you about $400,000 for a 1-bedroom. If you want 2-bedroom, probably starts around $550,000, $600,000 for something decent with good 2-size bedrooms. Townhouse, probably looking at $550,000 to $650,000. Semi, same type of range, probably $600,000 to $700,000. And then that detached house, probably around $750,000 plus to over $1.2 million. So I hope that helps. Of course, these are very rough numbers because it varies drastically. So email me if you kind of know where you want to live so you can get a better idea of prices in that specific area. I'll see you guys in the next video.